Hey y'all, Taylor here, and in today's video, I'm sharing what I consider essential settings to consider changing for yourself when setting up your new iPad, Magic Keyboard, and Apple Pencil Pro. These are things that I think make the iPad OS experience more useful and also remedy some of the more annoying aspects of iPad OS. This video is not sponsored, so if you'd like to show your support, hit that like button and subscribe. Let's start with True Tone. True Tone is Apple's display color shifting algorithm that attempts to tune colors based on ambient light to give you a more consistent viewing experience in different environments. What this actually does is just makes the screen more yellow while also noticeably shifting colors when you switch apps. Disable this for cooler colors overall that also don't shift around when you're doing different things on your iPad. This is especially essential if you're doing any sort of professional color work. While we're here in display settings, I recommend you set the theme to dark mode and also set the auto lock to never. Setting auto lock this way will give you a more macOS level of control over when your iPad automatically locks. In this case, only when you physically lock it via the physical button on the side or the key combination, or when you close the lid when using the Magic Keyboard. Next, Face ID. Enable it. Face ID makes logging into the iPad, your apps, and web pages so much more convenient. Setup is super easy, just follow the instructions and be sure to get close enough to the screen for it to recognize your face. For whatever reason, the iPad comes out of the box with the camera set to 1080p for video. You're going to want to go ahead and change that to 4K and also enable the level. This will help notify you when your photo or video is off axis, which will save you time correcting it in post. Once you start opening apps in your iPad, you'll start to notice this message asking you every time if you want to allow the app to track you. This is so annoying and can be disabled in settings. Disabling this will always communicate to the app that you don't want to be tracked. By default, notifications will be consolidated into one group in an effort to maximize lock screen real estate. I don't prefer this, and I actually set it to always space them out so that I can see which notifications are coming from which apps. I also changed my notifications to only show previews when the iPad is unlocked. That way, if you step away from your iPad, anyone walking by can't just read your notifications off your lock screen. If you value your battery life at all, which you probably do, consider enabling this 80% threshold setting. This limits the charge to a maximum of 80% while also notifying you that it's time to charge at 20%. This 80-20 range is ideal for keeping your battery healthy over the long run. I also recommend while you're in here to be sure that battery percentage is enabled. That way the battery at the top will notify you of the exact percentage. I'm going to assume that you're using your iPad for web browsing. Stop me if I'm wrong. Actually, don't stop me, keep watching. I recommend you enable show links on hover in Safari so that you can see the full URL in the lower hand corner when hovering over links. Similar to that, if you're using Chrome, I recommend you set the content viewing experience to desktop mode. This is defaulted to mobile, which might be fine for your phone, but not the iPad. Note that Safari is set to desktop by default. That's it for the iPad. Moving on to the Magic Keyboard. The first thing I noticed with the trackpad was that the tap to click wasn't enabled by default. I love my tap to click and I recommend you enable this for yourself. The keyboard has auto capitalization on by default. I find this really annoying when typing words out like iPad and it auto capitalizing the I. I turn this off so that I have full control over my capitalizations. Let's talk about backspacing text on iPad. If you've had an iPad, maybe you've experienced this, or maybe you've never had an iPad like me and have yet to experience this, but backspacing text on iPad is a nightmare. It's absolutely too slow, but you can fix this. Go into accessibility settings for the keyboard and reduce the key interval and key delay times for a much improved backspacing experience. I'm using half the defaulted values, which I find to be ideal for me. Also, pressing Ctrl D on the keyboard will forward delete text. I guess this is Apple's solution for the iPad in lieu of a dedicated function key on the Magic Keyboard. We got a function row, but no function key. Go figure. Finally, the Apple Pencil Pro, the moment we've all been waiting for, right? This thing is actually pretty solid out of the box, but here's some settings you might find useful. Personally, I found that double tap to switch between drawing and erasing was enabling too frequently. This was largely my fault, mind you, as I have a habit of twirling pens in my hand, so I would constantly enable this by accident. I set it to only enable on hover, which forces me to be in a writing ready position to get that double tap to have any effect. In that same settings screen, I set the pencil to be the absolute source of truth for drawing, which means my fingers are only used for scrolling. Without the setting enabled, your fingers will also draw on the screen. And finally, please enable Find My on your Apple Pencil Pro. This thing is not cheap, and anything you can do to reduce the risk of losing it is worth it in my book. Thanks so much for watching. I'm interested to hear y'all's questions in the comments below, so drop them if you have them. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I'm usually pretty good about it. Or just let me know what you thought of this video. Did you find it useful? Leave a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.